Is 2026 a good year to buy a house? Well, the answer I'm going to tell you might surprise you. For some people, no. And we're going to talk today about some of the reasons why sometimes it isn't the smartest time for you to buy. But for other people, it actually might be a great time. So today we're going to go through what you can expect in the 2026 housing market, and that way you can decide if it is a great or a bad time for you to buy. The problem with asking that question, is it a good time to buy, is that there isn't a universal answer for everybody. It can vary depending on your specific situation. So it may not be the best time to buy for you if you are going to be living here short term. A home is a great investment, but it is a long-term investment. If you buy a house and you think you're going to have to turn around and move to another state, to another part of the city in a year or even less than that, buying isn't necessarily the smartest thing. Your home is going to appreciate and gain value, but that happens over years. Your home accumulates equity. 3 to 5 years is what we say is ideal to stay in a home. 3 years, I would say minimum. If you don't think you're going to be in the same spot for 3 years, then maybe now isn't the best time to buy. The other people who may want to hold off a little bit is if you're on a really tight budget. Don't just assume because your mortgage payment is the same as what your rent is that you're going to be paying the same thing every month. Owning a home does come with some extra costs. You're going to have to pay for homeowner's insurance. You're going to have to prepare for maybe things that you got a roof leak or things that might break or are going to need some maintenance over the years. There are some costs associated with owning a home, and if you're on a super tight budget, maybe it's not the best time for you to take that on. Now, here are the people that it might be a really smart time for you to buy right now. If you feel pretty certain about your future, your employment, you know you're going to be in the same spot for the next few years, buying right now might actually be an ideal time. We have seen interest rates tick down over the last 2 years. We were in the high 7s, pushing towards 8 a little while back. Now we're down around 6. We actually even just ticked just below, so we're in the high 5s now. That is a great interest rate. If you're waiting on kind of the pandemic level 3% to come back again, it took a global pandemic to get interest rates that low, so I wouldn't hold your breath. 6% is actually historically a very good interest rate, a good, reasonable interest rate. So if interest rates are something that have kept you on the fence, now might be a really good time to jump in. Another thing that can benefit you in this market, we have more inventory now than we have had in the last few years. That means if you are a home buyer, you have more options, and with more options, not only are you having to not concede on things, you can actually get the house you want. You're not having to give up things that you really wanted, but it also means you have more negotiating power. You don't necessarily have to offer full price. You can negotiate things like the seller helping with your closing costs or paying for some updates or work that might be needed on the home. You're actually in a stronger position this year as a buyer than you have been. You've got good options and you've got a pretty good interest rate. So now if you're thinking of buying, can be a very smart time to call up that lender and get a pre-approval. One of the biggest mistakes I see with home buyers is they feel like they have to time the market perfectly. They think everything has to be in alignment for it to be a good time to buy. And that really is not true. Since owning a home is a long-term investment, it's really very forgiving. If you paid $5,000 more for your house than maybe you wanted to, over the long term, you're still gonna gain equity in that house and be in a better position 3 to 5 years from now than if you had just rented that whole time. The only time you really have to get it exactly right is if you were going to be selling quickly. So this applies more to my investors, my flippers. Their numbers have to be spot on. If they overspend on a house and then try to flip it or sell it, they're not going to make money. The margins aren't going to be there. But if you are a homeowner, just know that it is a long-term investment. And I've said this before in other videos, go back to any house in America 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it is worth more today than it was then. Historically, it is just a super safe investment. So don't freak out about the interest rate being 6.5 instead of 6%, or that you couldn't negotiate another $1,000 off the price. All of those things in the grand scheme of things are very minor, and your home typically appreciates somewhere between 3 to 5% a year. And so you hold on to that home for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you are going to be in a really good spot. Don't stress out about timing it perfectly. So in short, if you're waiting for the perfect conditions to buy a house, you're going to be waiting forever. There's never a perfect time. What it really depends on is your personal situation and your preparedness. If you are thinking you are ready to buy a home, I would highly recommend you call a realtor, schedule a buyer consultation. That is a no strings attached conversation where they can walk you through the entire process. We can talk about what you have saved up for a down payment, what your plans are, and we can help find a scenario that might benefit you and get you into a house sometime in 2026. So don't wait thinking everything has to be perfect. Start talking to professionals, get some real numbers, some real figures, go out and look at a few homes, see what's available in your price range and if there are things out there that you can see yourself living in. And don't be afraid to at least pick up the phone and call if you're thinking about taking the leap into homeownership in 2026. As always, we are happy to help you and happy to give you a buyer consultation anytime. Like I said, no strings attached, no fee. We love sitting down and educating new buyers or people that haven't bought a home in a while so that way they can make really sophisticated, savvy decisions in this 2026 market.